We're building a full suit of dark fantasy dragon armor, and we're kicking it off with a flexible piece of 3D printed scale skirting. I'll show you how we're setting the tone for the entire Hydra suit, so follow along to see how it was made, or even how you can make your own. I've been making scale skirting for years to go with our suits. It helps flesh out the mid-region without resorting to something more ostentatious, like a codpiece. Normally I make these scale skirting panels in leather, and indeed most of the armor for this project will be made of leather, but for these scales I wanted to try something a little bit extra, a bit different, so I designed these scales that can be 3D printed in resin. I expect I will also make a version of these files that can be laser cut too, and you can always follow along with our beginner tutorials if you'd like an easier version of this design. But for this project we'll need to print out a bunch of scales, and I'll walk you through that process. And we'll be taking a look at the HeyGears Ultracraft Reflex RS Turbo, along with their wash and cure station which was provided for this video. The initial setup was very straightforward and easy to do. This printer is calibrated from the factory. It also features auto leveling and residue detection to help prevent issues in failed prints. The way a resin 3D printer works is that it has a UV screen at the base that projects an image into the vat of resin. The build plate submerges into the resin vat until it touches the screen, and the print is fused to the build plate and cured one layer at a time with the screen. It's basically magic. Their latest model features an upgraded screen for even faster and more precise prints. When attempting the first prints, I had some questions, and it turns out they have a tech support built right into their slicer app, and they helped me identify some issues with my earlier versions of the file that I was trying to print. After the print is finished, they'll need to be removed from the build plate and cleaned off. HeyGears has a cool solution for this step with their wash station. The parts will be dropped into the containers which will be filled with alcohol, and then placed onto the wash station base which will agitate the liquid to clean the parts. The wash station is also connected via Wi-Fi and will know what settings to use based on the project you just printed. Another unique feature of the wash station is that it comes with additional containers which all have drain spouts, so you can simply drain one container into another to make the parts more easy to retrieve. Just don't forget to close the spout for your next print, or you'll end up with quite a mess. Ask me how I know. When the parts are clean, you can place them into the curing station, and this will shine and reflect UV lights all over the prints to finish curing them. This also doubles as a drying oven. Normally it would be ideal to remove the parts from the supports before curing, but I specifically designed these to snap apart easily even after curing, and they're arranged for easier post-processing, which I'll explain in a moment. Once the parts are cured, we can move on to painting. This scale design is one that I made in ZBrush, and it has gone through a few iterations. I had another batch that I printed previously, but I decided that the scales were going to be too heavy for the larger war skirt that I have planned. The latest version of the scales are sized down a bit and a little bit thinner. This will be easier to print in batches and lighter to wear. The previous design had the scales laid out in stacked columns like this, but I decided I wanted to make it easier to do some of the painting work, so I laid them out side to side in this latest version. And arraying them all into one brick is easier to handle overall, and when you're ready to paint you can just snap them off into rows, which are also easier to manage compared to having to pick up and hold each single scale at a time. The larger version of the skirt is going to have hundreds of these scales, so it's going to be important to find ways to streamline the process where we can. The print quality of this printer is outstanding. Even at default print settings, you can't see any layer lines. For the base coat, I'll be doing a quick coat in black, tinted with a splash of purple. Any common acrylic paint is fine. This suit's color scheme is going to be mostly purple and silver, and I'll be using a lot of Lumiere Pearl Violet throughout. For the next coat, we want to leave most of the black behind in any recessed areas, and I want to avoid building up too much paint because that would eventually wash out the details of the scale, so I want to do a light pass over the tops of each piece. One common way to achieve this is by dry brushing, but for me I find using a dense piece of sponge makes for quick work of this stage. I'm also going for a subtle gradient, with the heavier coat being towards the center of the scale and fading out a bit towards the back and sides. For the silver, I'm using some metallic paint from Stuart Simple, though I may go for mirror silver in the final version. I'm still deciding, and I'll see how things look in relation to the next components before I make up my mind. I'm painting the outside details here, and trimming the center ridges in silver. Once the paint is dried completely, I'll submerge them into warm water to soften the supports a bit. Then the scales can easily be popped off of their support trees. Yeah, it's very satisfying. The backs are currently unpainted, but most of the scales will not be seen from the backs, so we can just touch up the backs along any visible edges after assembly. Now we need to make something to mount the scales to. I've got a bunch of embossed crocodile leather and other textured leathers to choose from. I'll try out the croco cow leather here, but if you want to make this yourself, you can use any number of garment leathers. I'll be using the Nova 16 from Eon Laser to make quick work of this flap. The EMP air compressor helps keep the lines clean, and the filter box Expandex takes care of all the fumes. There will be patterns available that you can print at home and cut by hand and punch out all the holes manually, but if you have a laser cutter or have access to one, I suggest going that route because of the ease and precision. It's always satisfying to see this machine in action. I'll be using small double capped rivets for the assembly. These are ones that I get from Weaver Leather Supply. I'll work my way up, setting one scale at a time. As I mentioned previously, this is just the first piece of a much larger build, and if you're interested in this build, subscribe now and get notified for the next video. If you would like to dive deeper into fantasy armor crafting, we've got full guided builds and resources inside our online academy, linked below. If you've ever used rivets to assemble thin pieces of leather, you know if you don't hit it perfectly straight, the rivet can skew and not get a good set. Luckily in this case, each rivet only needs to support the weight of a single scale, so as long as the rivets are not too skewed, you should not have problems. But of course, if any rivets don't set at all, be sure to pull those and reset them. You can also make and use leather washers to increase the thickness to make setting easier, and if you have a foot press, that can make things easier as well. At the top, the flap will be looped back around to the front, and this will give us a place to run a small belt strap through. I'll have links in the description if you'd like to get the files for this project, as well as to the HeyGears 3D printer featured in this video. We may also offer some scales that you can purchase in batches in the future. It's something we are considering, so let us know in the comments if that's something you would like to see, and what projects would you use these scales in.